Hey guys, it's Phoebe from Alternative Twist Radio. We have Mike here, our station owner. I'm your DJ host. We have Keith Leahy from the Petal Falls joining us today. Thanks for coming, Keith.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for asking me.
Yes, we're so excited. Absolutely. We're so excited and honored to have you on our show. And you're from the UK, so there's quite a time difference here, huh? Can you give us a brief intro about the Petal Falls?
Yeah, okay. So the Petal Falls was originally a band that was formed in the mid-90s. There was 5 guys. There was myself on vocals, keys and guitar. A guy called Rob Harpham, who was one of the guitarists. We had 2 guitarists. The other one was a guy called Dave Richards. The bass player was Mariusz Wazinski, and the drummer was Robin Tucker. And originally I put the band together because a few of these guys were my friends, because I wanted a vehicle to be able to use for the music that I was writing. And it seemed sensible to me to form a band with that aim, and so it proved. And I became the chief songwriter for the band. Virtually everything was written by me in one way or another, or it was written by me and another member or whatever. And we had a modicum of success, but eventually we did get picked up by a mid-tier label. I won't say who, and we thought, yeah, well, this is it. You know, we're on the way. But ultimately, there was a prevalence then in those days where bands who could potentially be a rival to a band that a record label was actually putting a lot of money into would get signed, and they'd just sit on them. And unfortunately, we were one of those bands. We were in the same vein of 2 or 3 bands that they already were putting big money into, and it didn't matter how good we were. They'd already spent the money, and it was like an investment they had to protect. So we just sat there for 4 or 5 years and recorded loads of albums and never had a single thing released, which eventually become extremely frustrating, and did eventually really became the demise of the original group. And I'd signed a deal that was, I wouldn't sign now. I was younger then, to try and get into the business and stuff like that. So I signed away a lot of rights to my music, and I couldn't do anything with it because I didn't own it. So some years later, not that many years ago actually, that said company liquidated, and all the rights reverted back to the original owners. So all my music came flooding back to me, no more than 4 or 5 years ago. And I was left with an option what to do with the music. And I had, leaving the band and the way that the music industry there would left a really bitter taste in my mouth. I wasn't overly keen to go back into it, but I did think to myself, well, I put so much of my life into that music. It would be a shame not to do something with it. So I spoke to 1 or 2 of the other guys, and I'd met up with a good old friend of mine who was actually my first ever drummer in my first ever band, a guy called John King, who later went on to do a lot of work with major recording studios, Virgin Townhouse, people like that. They called Elvis Costello and Rory Gallagher and people like that. He's well experienced. And I said to him, do you want to have a listen? And he went, well, just his mouth dropped open. He said, how have you never ever been able to release this music? And he just said to me, we'll get this done. So we looked at all the songs. We had them in order for albums and stuff. So and we started to remaster it. It took us, with 50 odd songs. We had to cut them down into what was good, what was bad, what was well recorded, what wasn't recorded. But eventually we ended up with a good 40 songs that we split up into 4 albums. The first album was an album called Working All Day, Working All Night, and that was released last year, and that went bananas. That was just, there was press, it was just incredible. It got some fantastic streaming numbers, and it got a lot of critical acclaim, and it sort of made me rethink the whole thing. And we just kept working on it, and I said to John, I said, you know what, I really fancy just doing more. So effectively, the Petal Falls was put back together as a solo project with me and John, and so we've got the album that's just come out, which came out in when was it, September, last September, all these years. And again, some of the reviews and some of the critical acclaim it's been awestruck. I just can't believe it. It's just like, wow.
I first heard of your music, Keith, I fell in love, and I shared it with Mike, and I said, we got to find him. We got to get him. Oh my God, he's in the UK. It doesn't matter. We need to feature him.
Well, because this is fantastic, isn't it? I mean, this is just, you're 8,000 miles away, and here we are chatting as if we're in the same living room or something.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think anytime before this time, we wouldn't have been able to do it. We wouldn't have been able to find you so easily online. I think we found you on Facebook, one of the groups, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yes. And I fell in love with your sound right away, and it surprised me that with your talent, with your sound, you don't have a greater following. So I truly believe it's all about timing.
Sometimes it is, and you're right. I've had so many of those comments where people have said, "Wow, 20 years ago, why didn't you have a mention 20 years ago?" It's not always about timing, in the sense that no matter how good your music is, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get it out there, because it's all about, in many ways, who people know, who they're, and in our instance, as I said before, it was a simple case of economics. They'd already spent a small fortune on a couple of bands, and if they just moved away to us, it would be, wow, what are we going to do with that? So it's economics, and it's not pleasant, but it was, and I didn't appreciate it at the time, I still don't, but I mean, it's life, isn't it? There is an opportunity for people to be able to listen to music, because people like you are asking me to come on your shows and talk about it. That means that, even if 10 more people listen to it, that's 10 more than yesterday. So there's always an opportunity, and if it's a passion, and obviously music is a passion with you guys as well, and you love talking about it, I mean, I love it. I just absolutely love doing it. I love creating songs. I love performing songs. So hopefully, with the more and more that we release, and the body of work, because I think that becomes relevant as well sometimes. It isn't always about, did you get that really catchy single out there, which everybody heard, and then they never heard from that artist again. I think it's a lot of the time it's about the body of work that people can put out there. And when you listen to some really good bands, usually you listen to them because there's a fullness in everything that they've done. There's a real body of work there that you can listen to, and it isn't just one track. There's 15, there's 20 tracks that you think, wow, there are 20 tracks I really love from that band. And that may be 20 tracks from 30, but the body of work is what you're listening to, rather than the one single. So yes, the one singles are still out there. There's plenty of people who are making money on getting rich quick on one single, but in our instance, we never really considered that. It was always a career. We always intended to write albums and have a body of work, because although lots of people have said that we're a bit like a non-Scandinavian really catchy rock unit because of all the hooks, the constant hooks, That's just the way I write, and that's just the way the music comes out. But
Right.
I think that it's always been about writing albums, you know, and about a body of work rather than one or two singles. I mean, I've got to be honest. You mentioned to me in the preamble before we started Liberated. Do you know Liberated was the first ever single that the Petal Falls ever released? It's the first ever single, you know.
Wow.
And it went, and when we released it went, people just went bananas over it, because it was I suppose as you mentioned before about the style of music. People don't release music like mine anymore. That music, my genre of music, is firmly based on memory, if you know what I mean. It's people have that memory of that type of music in the 90s and the noughties, yeah?
Yeah.
People are not regularly releasing music like mine now. So I suppose there's a niche there, really. I suppose we can move into a little niche that people who want to listen to melodic rock, which is really, I suppose, what we can say our music is. It's sort of hard melodic rock. There aren't that many bands. There's still lots of the older bands that release that music. Bon Jovi's in this world, people are, but there's no new music from someone that no one's ever heard. There's not a lot of that around. So I think again, when we talk about what the opportunity and timing, there's something there where you've released something that I think that's what people they've heard a style of music that they recognise. They recognise the fact that it's firmly based in the 90s, noughties type of era. It's got that something about it. But because all of the music has been remastered recently, and all been done digitally in the way it's been remastered, it sounds new. So that's the thing that people are sort of saying, wow, why does this sound like this? It sounds like the 90s, but it's not. And when we remastered, there were bits and pieces that I added, and little bits. It wasn't like a re-recording of the whole thing. It was simply a case of adding bits and pieces on tracks that really already had a very, very high degree of production that had been done on. So that was one of the other things that people notice, is that there's a very high level of production goes through the music. There's lots of pieces in it, from backing vocals to keyboards to lots of guitars, layered guitars and stuff like that. So it sounds quite a lush, full sound when you listen to a Petal Falls song. We don't really produce. There are songs that are bare bones a little bit, but we don't really write like that. I don't write like that. I tend to write bigger, fuller songs. Just the way I write, I suppose. I mean, so I suppose that's the way people of my era, dating myself again. That's the way we sort of learn to write. I suppose that was just our school. I mean, you go to a new Ed Sheeran, for instance. Ed Sheeran doesn't write anything like me. He writes some fantastic poppy songs, but they're all, I think, pretty grassroots at times. Yeah, they're pretty straightforward, with not a lot of elements layered on top of them. So you listen to our stuff and you think, wow, that's a much bigger sound to someone like Ed Sheeran, who's just an example, really. But so I think when you say this, it is timing. It is timing in many ways, but also I think it's really about you being prepared to make that happen a bit, because I know you can't always make your dreams happen or anything like that, but you can. Yeah. You can push and focus what you do towards an end. And the end game for us was always to get people to hear the music, because no one had ever heard it. So, and for us to have the reaction that people have had to it has been absolutely fabulous. It's out of this world. It's just awestruck, really, at times. Just some of the comments are just, did you just say that, really? Just fabulous, really. So I am very humble in the fact that I've been given the second chance to do it. So, and I'll grasp it by the throat and I'll strangle it to death until we get it right.
Talking about your music, Keith, what inspires you to write your music, lyrically and instrumentally? I know you're the composer, you're also the guitarist, and you do keys as well, right?
Yeah, I do a bit, but I'm by no means a virtuoso or any of those things. I mean, I primarily see myself as a vocalist and a songwriter. But I love production. I love arrangement. So I like working with lots of different instruments or lots of parts. So I it's like a puzzle to me. I like putting those pieces in so they all fit properly. I suppose if I think about it, the writing of it all is just one element, really. I suppose lyrically, I tend to base all of my music upon real life, real events, people I've known, incidents I've known of. So, and I like to think that when you listen to one of my songs, that there's maybe a trigger in there, and you think, oh, I know someone who, or that happened to me, or you know what I mean? That's that type of thing. So I'd like to bring. I don't write overly aggressive songs or anything like that, but I like to think that to many degrees, I suppose it has a like Springsteen element to it. Who I'm an admirer of Springsteen's because I don't like all of his music, but I do. He has that element of storytelling that I love. That way of capturing a moment in time, or an era, or a place, and then conveying it in a song, and everybody goes, "Oh, I know that." So it's that element that you try to capture as a songwriter.
Right.
Musically, the sound of the Petal Falls is very much the sound I want it to sound like. And to that element, it was very frustrating sometimes for the guitarist because I wanted things. You got to play this way, and it has to sound like that. And if you know guitarists, but if you know any guitarist, you'll know that they don't like doing that at all. so that was always a struggle. But yeah, I mean, I suppose the music was. I mean, someone described it to me recently. He said your music is like having a dish of deep field production, yeah, with a side helping of smart, catchy lyrics, yeah, with lashings of catchy choruses at the end. And I thought that is probably what our songs are. They are layered like that. They are designed for people to get a hook, listen and pick up on things. But I like to think that there's a lyrical content in there that people will hook onto and will be relevant to them, because I mean all the stories that I like to write are always about people that I've known, people or incidents that I know about. So there's an element of real life in everything that I write about. But the sound is something that we worked on, and it didn't come first time. It took us probably a year to get that sound right, to get the parts right, to get the way the guitars slotted in and the keys slotted in. It took a little bit of time, but once we got it, we knew how to do it every time, and we still do. And that's one of the things that the new music is probably another development on that. But when you listen, you'll hear the album that comes out this year, and I won't disappoint anybody by saying that it won't be outrageously different. So it will be hopefully more of the same but better, and that's the way we structured the album. So hopefully, so by the time we get to the end, people will have run the full gamut of where we were and what we achieved and how we got there, and you'll be able to see the full range of the music that we envisioned doing, which did cover and will cover, because it will cover multiple styles, I suppose, in many ways. Because if you listen to some of our music, it isn't all. I mean, when you listen to a Bon Jovi song or an AC/DC song, you know what you're going to get on the next song as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we didn't want to do, and I didn't want to do, I've never wanted to do, was I didn't want to have a style that limited me into producing the same thing over and over and over and over again, where people say, oh yeah, that's good. Give us another solo Angus with that. And I love AC/DC, but you do know what you're going to get with them.
Right.
True.
So I like to think that perhaps on the next album, people will have an opportunity to hear the difference to the last album. There will be differences, and there are a few songs in there that people will go, oh, I didn't know I could do that, but it will still sound like the Petal Falls. That sound will be there, that same sound will be there, but it will be a slightly different style of song for people to listen to. So, and I hope they like it. That's the whole thing of doing it, isn't it? You want people to like it, and hopefully that they'll be enthused enough to do what you said, Phoebe, and that was become a fan. And that's what you want. You want people to like the music and enjoy it. I've always thought that music is quite egotistical, isn't it? If you know what I mean. You have to be a bit of an egotist to want to stand in front of people, to sing in front of people. But I think also there is an element of wanting to tell people stories. And I think, I like to think that the very best musicians, the good musicians, that is a lot of the motive behind what they do, is to tell their stories and to tell other people's stories. Because I think that's what music is, isn't it? Music is it's in many ways about our stories.
Yes.
And sometimes it can be frivolous, and sometimes it can be absolutely epic. So you listen to some of those great bands of the past and some of the stuff that they wrote about, and you think, wow, I wish I could do that. So have a go. That's what I'm going to do. So
I'm very excited about your upcoming albums, especially the one that's going to be released later on this year. Do you have like a projected time where you're going to be releasing your album?
We're probably going to try. I'm probably going to try and release it at the end of the summer.
Okay.
So again, about the same time as the last album. So it'll be August, September. So working through some videos for the songs. I am one of these people who am not a great fan of performance videos. They have their place, but the songs I write, I like to. So I want to convey that in a video. I want people to see what's in, because I think that's what I want. That's what I prefer to see. I know if you're signed to a major label, there's no way on earth they'd ever let you do that. They would just simply say to you, you need to stand in front of the camera and play your damn guitar. And that's
right.
And that's what they want. But I don't want that. I want to actually be able to tell in the video the story of the song, so people can grasp onto it a bit, and maybe it will have a bit more impact with them. So so I'm working on that, because there'll be singles. I think the first single, whilst the album might be coming out in the end of August, early September time, I think the first single may be coming out as early as May. So, and because there's going to be, I think, 3 or 4 singles off of this album. So, and you've got to allow the marketing to allow time between each single for it to sing, because you release a single, and as I said before, Liberated was the first single we'd ever released, and suddenly found out that it actually takes radio stations, DJs, mags, and all that stuff. It takes them 4 weeks to pick up on it. So you might release it, but they don't get around to doing anything with it for about another 4 weeks after that. And by then, you're beginning to release another single. So you think,
your next one.
God, no one liked it.
True. True.
So the idea this time is to release in May, and allow enough time so that we can get the singles in. So I can get all the singles in before the album gets finally released at the end of September. So. So maybe halfway through the year, you're going to start hearing the music from this album coming out. So it's not that long, really.
That's great.
People are out there listening. It's you can calm down now.
Yes,
it's going to come sooner than what you think. So.
So why don't we take this opportunity to watch your music video, so your fans can watch your music and listen to your music and gain new fans as well. Okay, so we'll take a pause and check it out.
To save the money so he could buy this house. From father to son they worked that mill. Grim was the reaper with a heart like hell. The fabric of our lives was woven with the steel. Every stick of furniture, every single meal. As a boy with the place I'd learned to hate, my father told me then I'd never cross that gate. He said, I know the times are changing,
That was a great music video, Keith. I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
I just want to thank you all for the interview. And again, say to everybody, Keith Leahy here from the Petal Falls on Alternative Twist Radio. Please tune in and enjoy the rest of your day.